Flights are pricey, planning feels chaotic, and that family trip keeps getting pushed. I hear it every day from business owners and busy professionals, and I felt it too. I'm Ross, the founder of Itinerary Boss and your host. After 10 plus years of planning work and personal trips to over 20 countries, I became the guy who found the deals and turned points into upgrades. This show helps you turn everyday business and personal spend into points and miles for premium travel. Each week, you'll get step by step tactics and short episodes, plus expert guests with specific use cases tied to your most asked questions for travel plans that'll help support your business, goals, and your life. Go ahead and grab the free points and miles cheat sheet in the show notes to speed up your learning. And now, on with the show. Welcome back to another episode of World Travel Made Easy. On this week's episode, I'm excited to have Matthew Dong. He is the co-founder of WuHoo Group. He's also stayed at $40,000 worth of Hyatts for $0. And he recently just had a $48,000 date for $356 in the sky, which is pretty wild. I think for me, he's from Northern Virginia, so he's an expert when it comes to Dulles, and that's a place that holds a special place in my heart. So really excited to have Matt on today. What's going on, Matt?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. And yeah, really excited for this conversation. Like I mentioned, you're from Dulles, so a lot of friends always have questions around that when they're starting to travel with kids. How do I fly on other airlines that might not just be United? So really excited to dive into the episode. First off, just is there anything else from your background that you want to share with the audience before we dive in?
Sure. I have always been into credit cards. In college, it was all about getting the cash back so I get a free meal here and there. It wasn't until after I got my first job, I had real expenses, but real income. Friends all over the world. I really wanted to travel, so that kind of sparked you know, insight into credit card points using that. So it's been a wild ride ever since.
It's always that first time that gets you hooked, and then we could talk an hour long about the rabbit hole that you go down and all the mistakes and
Yeah.
and strategies. But cool, man. Well, yeah, just I mean, first thing, like airline alliances. I think that is one thing that just at a surface level, a lot of people don't even know about. And once they unlock that, that is where the real value comes from with points. So really just want to, from your perspective, why should people care about those? And are there any advantages when using those that people get?
Yeah, when I go to these business networking sessions, I'm telling about you can fly, all these places throughout the US on points, and United being a huge player in the Dulles airport, taking up C and D terminals. Everyone thinks, yeah, I redeem my points. I got a United card. I have United miles. I get a lot of flights for free, and that is like nails on a chalkboard sometimes. To be fair, there are some United Saver rewards that are really good, but for the most part, you're better off getting Chase transferable points, Amex City, a bunch of different banks that, if you've been listening to Ross, you probably know about. That almost all of them transfer to Air Canada, and I feel like 8 out of 10 times the same United flight is going to be cheaper on Air Canada when there's availability. And how that occurs is because United, Air Canada, Turkish Airlines, a whole bunch of other uh, carriers are part of the Star Alliance. That's what Ross is referencing to. And because they're all in alliance together, you can book either by cash or points, these partner flights. If take an example, if you ever try to fly to Europe or Asia, maybe you're booking for United, it's a United plane to Dulles, but then maybe your actual flight from Dulles to, let's say, Brussels is a European carrier, but they're part of the same airline alliance. So that's why um, when you're flying out of Dulles, yes, you're most likely flying United, but you don't have to book through United.
Yeah, I like how you break that down because that, like you said, it's nails on a chalkboard sometimes where it's like, oh, I crush it. I have my United, my Delta card, my right. Like, and sometimes the co-branded cards when you live there for some perks are great, but if that's the only way you're accumulating miles, that's where you're missing out on a lot. And yeah, the Air Canada Aeroplan is a great way to, if there's availability, just so many transferable points, award availability. And I would suggest next time you're in an airplane, look out the window if you're in Dulles, and you'll probably see a big Star Alliance across the plane. And that's when you'll be like, ah, that's what they're talking about. That's when it clicked for me years ago, was like, what is the Star Alliance thing? And yeah, that's that's how we keep it simple. But just from a Dulles standpoint, like how does United fit into that picture, right? Like why is Dulles such a strategic gateway for people if they, if they're using transfer partners?
Yeah, so it's one of the major like East Coast hubs that has a lot of these international carriers. So putting United aside, right, a lot of those famous points influencer type seats, the Emirates, the Qatar Q suites. You have so many of those international flights coming in and out, and it's kind of that middle ground. Atlanta's really south. New York is obviously probably the biggest hub, but between that, you only got BWI, Philly. Boston's also helpful, but it's more north. Like it's kind of the central place in the United States that allows you to fly to a lot of places in Europe, the Middle East, Asia, not as much.
Yeah, yeah, we're actually doing a positioning flight up to Dulles to go to South Africa next May, and that's same thing. It was like, do we want to? And they have directs to Cape Town, and but for us, we were just thinking like, okay, how do we utilize that? And then also, like you mentioned, from Middle East, either Qatar or from Istanbul, and we're actually flying back Turkish from there. So it's like there's strategies when there is that central hub. And yeah, just being that center and having all those is always going to be key. A lot of people ask about transfer partners. I think, people see online, they're like, hey, what's the best card for me to get personally? And you and I both know working with people, it's like, well, how much time do you have, right? Every situation is going to be different, right? So just how can someone leverage? You mentioned a couple, right? And we'll just stick to the big three, Amex, Chase, Capital One. But how do those really connect to the Star Alliance? And just keeping it simple, like are there specific partners, you'd recommend for someone starting out
Yeah.
to just get started with?
I'll give you an example I was actually looking at this week. So I mentioned United flights, right? Their miles are decent, but maybe not the best. Air Canada is a better option in my mind. Most of the time, obviously, you still have to look and do the math. So I'm trying to fly to Houston in May for a wedding. And looking on United, those direct flights are nice, but they range from 20 to 40,000 points, um, give or take. So I could transfer my Chase Ultimate Reward points, get on for my Chase credit card. I have a Chase Sapphire Preferred, transfer them directly to United, book that flight. Could be easy, done. When I can do that, it's nice to save the hassle of booking through transfer partners. But the hassle isn't worth the 15,000 point flight instead. And what I mean by that is on Air Canada, I found that same exact United flight, Dulles to Houston, direct. Um, for, as I said, only 15,000 points. Compare that again to the 20 to 40,000 points on United's own website. It's kind of a no brainer. I'm going to transfer my points to Air Canada. And where I'm transferring points from is with United, you're really only stuck with either Chase points or I think Built also transferred to United. But with Air Canada, they're partners with almost every single bank, I'm pretty sure. So my American Express points, my Capital points. I can kind of pick and choose which one I have a lot of that I want to use for this upcoming Houston flight by transferring it to Air Canada again to book an actual United flight.
Yeah, no, that's a great simple strategy. And we always recommend, and I know you. Hey, I wanted to take a quick break to say thank you so much for tuning into the show. The only way the show grows is through listeners like you helping us share it. So if you're enjoying the show, it'd mean the world to me if you hit that 5-star rating, shared it with a friend or family member who's ready to travel more, save money, or just needs a little bit more inspiration and that nudge. And if you're posting about it on Instagram, go ahead and tag Itinerary Boss, and we'll make sure to reshare it and shout you out for giving us a shout out. Thanks so much for the support. It truly means a lot. And now back with the show. I know you do too. It's just like it's good to have points diversification because then, and that's what I hear from a lot of people is, oh, I love banking with this one bank, or I'm set with them. And it's like, well, if you want transferable, and it just depends, right? If you're under, Chase 524 and you have a lot of different cards and business cards, it's a little easier. But once you start to, want to travel on different airlines, having those transferable currencies is key because then you can start to, commingle those. Like for one of our flights on Qatar, we did, 100 Capital One, 100 Chase for the South Africa one I just mentioned, Chase for United through Ethiopia, and then Capital One on Turkish Airlines. So it's like having those gives you that flexibility. And when you build out that strategy, like you're not just stuck and like, okay, I only can do this one. So no, that's really helpful. And I think it's good too. It's not always about the big flights where, right, the $48,000 dates, right? It's those simple ones too of like Houston of how do I figure out a way where it isn't just United, right? Like you said, Air Canada. I know there's some new cool ones now with the Mesa card where you could use like Air India, and now, that's a little bit more advanced, but like you can get off maybe a $3,500 mortgage a month. You can get a one-way flight on United using, right, those type of points. So that's where kind of the magic happens when people realize that they start to be like, oh, wow, okay, this makes a little bit more sense. So from a program you'd recommend, you'd say probably Air Canada is that best one for beginners to start with.
Yeah, start looking if you're flying United just because of how simple it is. It captures most of what's available on United. And then if you want to go a little intermediate, you can start looking at the other Star Alliance partners like Turkish Airlines, Singapore Airlines, and just comparing the difference in points.
Awesome. Awesome. Are there mistakes that you see people like what are obviously there are, but are there like big common ones that you see people when they're trying to transfer points for the first time?
For the first time, I do think this is a warning for anyone using Air Canada. Make your account now. Like you're listening to this podcast, make your Air Canada frequent flyer account now. It's free because what I've seen is helping clients through creating a new account, transferring the points. It seems like a 50-50. Sometimes you get flagged for fraud, right? Because it looks suspicious if you immediately create an account, immediately try to transfer a bunch of points. It might be stuck there for a week and then your flight might be gone. So there's nothing really you can do about that except by making that account early. And that's not necessarily just for Air Canada. That's also for other airlines. I know Japan Airlines right now is a new transfer partner to Built, and you can't book anything on points for 60 days after creating your account, right? So make your accounts now so that when you're ready to transfer, the points can drop in.
Yeah, I think that was the same when we did British Airways to Qatar a couple years back. It may have been 90 days. I think I'd have to go back and look, but I remember reading, I'm like, okay, we got to time this perfectly with that 355-day calendar, right? To make sure we get that award space. And
Exactly.
it's a lot of it is, right? The first thing people think of is, and sometimes it's as simple as, hey, I don't want to put another card in my wallet because I don't have enough space. Or, hey, I do like, what do I do with all these cards, right? How do I track these? So for that's like the simple stuff. But for tracking awards, sweet spots, just everything, like what are some best strategies that, you utilize for the partner airlines?
Yeah, I think if we're just talking about United Star Alliance, I'm pretty familiar personally now with all the different availability and partners. But for beginners, I definitely think using search engines are helpful. So that includes seats.aero, Rome.travel, pointia.com, point me. There's a ton out there to kind of help you find the roots of what's kind of out there. And any sort of there's a bunch of these kind of matrices, I guess plural, transfer partner matrices out there that people have created that you can kind of see. Okay, if I have an American Express card, I can transfer these Star Alliance partners. That way, you're not looking at every single Star Alliance partner because I think the common issue I also find is people know about Lufthansa, very popular airline, look at Lufthansa's website for Star Alliance flights, and only when they realize that no credit card points transfer to Lufthansa, they're like, I wasted however many hours searching. So know your transfer partners and where you can go to.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good start. And I think it's, when people are getting started out, it's knowing your hub too. I think it's like we're in Charlotte, so American hub, I'm going to focus more on that. But then for you guys, I mean, luckily, Dulles, right? You're a central hub, so it's going to be a little easier than having to figure out taking positioning flights to some of those others. So no, that's really, really, really helpful. I know you mentioned, some domestic stuff you're doing just to Houston. Are there any others that you found just if someone's just getting started or they're like, hey, I just want to take a domestic trip per year, like that are some good routes on United through partners?
Yeah, for United, it's going through a lot of hubs. So I think I mentioned Dulles is a United hub, but so is Houston. Chicago is very close by. You can even do a day trip sometimes. Even Los Angeles, like you can find, I think 12,000 points economy one way. San Diego as well. I found 12,000 on Air Canada. So there's a lot of hub to hub kind of routes that you can quickly find save rewards. For non-hub routes, I've flown to small cities, I guess like Buffalo. It's still doable. It just may not be the best value. But if it's free at the end of the day, like you use your points, having used that much cash, I say, and it makes you happy, go ahead with it.
Yeah, yeah, no. What about bigger long haul, international flights, some of those ones, right, that you took where you're saving tons of money, that are kind of those just Instagrammable, TikTok, whatever people, right? Like the LinkedIn that people like to share.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit harder because generally these iconic routes are very popular and they usually only release two business class seats at a time per flight, and there's usually only one flight per day versus, like a JFK or LAX, there might be multiple of these international carriers. Usually it's just one. Like for example, I flew Korean Air to Korea. Korea, there's only the one flight. They don't even have a dedicated check-in desk because of that. So because of that middle point, you kind of have to really be on top of your game a year out to be planning, okay, which route am I going to go? How many points do I need? Maybe even preemptively transfer them so that, midnight or 3 a.m. date when they get released, you can book it right away. But that's not to say it's not impossible. On the United Star Alliance front, there's still a lot of save rewards out there. Sure, you have to be flexible. Sometimes it's last minute. For example, my wife and I flew to Brussels for New Year's, but we only planned that trip, I think, a month out. And we were able to find the save rewards on Turkish Airlines. So going through the example again, on United Airlines, the flight for United Polaris business class was 80,000 points per person. Pretty good, but I thought I could do better. On Air Canada, the same exact flight, 60,000 points per person. Turkish Airlines, it was 45,000 points per person. And so I obviously went with that. I transferred 90,000 Capital One miles to book my wife and I over. So that kind of shows you there is still some flexibility, whether you're planning a year in advance or last minute, and still in between. There's still routes that can pop up.
Yeah, no, that breakdown's really good because you just showed 70,000 points, right? Chase points that you saved just from, well, more than that, obviously 160,000, but you saved just by having that flexibility, that many points, which is another business class, sometimes depending on where you're going, too. So that's an impressive example. And I mean, a lot of people, the majority who are outside of this world, right, are planning a month in advance. So it might honestly fit their box of how they already are structured,
Yep.
when they are planning. But I think, for two people, a little bit easier. I know you have a younger child, like, you've gone through the process of just booking for you and your wife, and
Yep.
then now, right, you've brought another person into the mix.
Passenger.
Just and I have a lot of friends too who are at that stage where they are having, they're trying to figure out, okay, what are strategies for that? Just any specifics, that you want to touch on just around that could help others.
Yeah. Don't make my mistake. I assumed kids under two flying free was a worldwide thing. It is not. It is just the US domestic thing. So for points for cash flights, book around the US, it's been great. I only pay I don't pay for him, right? I just add him as an lab infant and we're done. I recently came back from Hong Kong. I booked first class Cathay Pacific. This was before he was born. I mean, we knew he was coming, but I just booked it because I had the points. It was only $356. Would have been $44,000 for both my wife and I total if we had booked in cash. This is great. Going to be a great experience. Super good value. My son's born. I get his passport, everything. I'm ready to book his lap infancy. I'm like, all right, add him for free. This is great. It was 10% of the adult fare. So I paid $2,200 for this guy to not even have a seat, not even enjoy the caviar or champagne, just have juice boxes and sit with me and encroach on my territory. So it was still a wonderful experience. Like I enjoyed it. The seat is massive, so we could play and everything. But if I could do it again, I'd probably do business because that would have only been $800 for him. So that's a quick lesson learned, and I hope no one else falls for my mistake. I mean, but if you're willing to spend 2,200 for your 11-month old, then sure, go for it.
I remember seeing your LinkedIn post on that and I was like, I just learned something. Because, not having kids, it's like there's the lap infant, fee on some of the airlines, but that specific one, I think when people get into the hobby or they're trying to, they're like, well, I don't want to make the mistakes. And it's like, trust me, you're going to and learn from people like Matt and I's mistakes. Cause yeah, I mean, I've made plenty and we all do that. That's how you get better at it, just like anything.
And I'll shout out Lewis, one of our peers. He's kind of created this chart that tells you so you don't make a mistake. Where our children are too free. Maybe for I think Air France is you pay a discount on the points, so you can use points, right? So he's kind of done that research. So hopefully other people don't have to make the same mistake.
Yeah, I was listening to Chris Hutchins' podcast, All the Hacks, which is one of my favorites, and he was talking to one of the guys from Frequent Miler. And yeah, that Air France KLM is, I think it's 25% off points ticket. So it's like 60,000 would be 45, which, is good. And I think, is it Air Canada has I can't even remember.
I think
Ticket.
it's also it's like 5,000 miles,
Yeah.
or maybe that's Virgin Atlantic. I'm confusing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Virgin Atlantic.
like a couple of miles. So
Yeah. Okay.
it's different
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah, the little tips and tricks. Are there, I mean, any other tips just outside of like the big, right, those big redemptions for newer parents? Maybe it's domestic routes, maybe it's other just little things within for people maybe flying out of Dulles or even the Star Lines. Any other tips or tricks for them?
Yeah. What's nice again, going back to Air Canada, it'll tell you how many seats are left. So that's always helpful because if you're booking for 3, 4, 5 people on United, it's harder to tell. On Air Canada, it literally tells you the seats left, so you can kind of take that number and run with it through the other partners. That kind of gives you a good gauge of should you be looking at this or a different flight.
Nice. Okay. Cool. What about a lot of people when they're getting started out and they're going to Europe? I always get this question of like, where should I go first? What's a good starter itinerary? And like for us, it was always okay. We started going to Germany, right? Amsterdam, like the places that are closer, but you want to do that are easier accessible. Most people don't think, hey, let me just go fly to Bali on my first leg, right? I haven't been outside the States, right?
Yeah.
So are there any specific routes just from Dulles to Europe that are, pretty simple that you can find award availability for people?
The best, in my opinion, is definitely going to France and Paris specifically. There's just a lot of availability, both in economy and business class, that you can find from Dulles to Air France. I think this is one of the cases where there's multiple Air France flights from Dulles. So I actually did this for my honeymoon. I was only able to find economy, but it was fine. I think I only paid, I'm trying to remember, like 17,000 points per person. Uh, was it round trip? No, I forget. I don't want to give the wrong numbers, but anyway, it'd be
Yeah.
outdated by now. But the point is, you can find very cheap economy, even cheap in terms of 45, 50,000 points. Business class from Dulles to Paris, and Air France commonly has transfer bonuses, 20 to 30%. So it's very, very doable to kind of get these, again, the cards we mentioned, Chase, Amex, Capital One, wait for a transfer bonus, find those flights to go to Paris. So
Yeah.
not a bad.
Yeah. And if you start stacking Rove miles, the new tool that's out and adding those in, that's where it can get a little more fun. And I think that, I mean, I was just talking to, I had a friend, she travels a good amount flying out of Dulles, going to France over the holidays. And she was like, should I get the preferred card? I see you talk about it in your newsletter, some of the, how to utilize that for just different partners. And I asked her how she used her points. She said through the portal as a statement credit. And I was like, oh no, that's literally what I said, right? Like, and that probably cost, I mean, I don't know, however much the cash ticket was, but it was probably the same amount of points than it probably would have cost as a business transferring that over.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, because like the cheapest you might find is $800 economy. So let's just say $80,000 worth or 80,000 points. That's almost a round trip business class.
Which is, oh my gosh, yeah. But we've all made the mistakes. I blew my first Capital One bonus, 100, what, 2016? Yeah, on that, on a statement credit. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, no shame. Sometimes you
Yeah.
gotta do what you gotta do, but now that this
Hey,
this information, it's better to find those good trip values.
exactly. No, exactly. Is there anything, because a lot of people get into this, are like, this is overwhelming. Like, how do I do this, right? How do I even get started? Like, from your standpoint, like, what is the advice you give people when they're first getting started out?
Yeah, I think anyone flying out of Dulles slash DCA in this DMV area, the easiest thing to start out with is the Capital One Venture X card. It keeps things very simple, right? It's $395 annual fee, but you get a $300 travel credit. So if you're traveling at least once a year, you're already making most of the annual fee back. Then you get the 10,000 anniversary points, which is equivalent to at least $100 of statement credit. Again, if we're redeemed for statement credit, but hopefully we can use it for more value. So then the card's basically paying you $5 a year to keep it. But the reason why I specifically call out Dulles and DCA is because they both have Capital One lounges. I've been to both; they're really great. Especially the DCA one, it's partnered with Jose Andres, so the food is really good. But whenever I fly to Dulles, it's the lounge is right outside pre-check. I just go after pre-check security and go into the lounge, get my coffee, use the bathrooms, get the unlimited food and drinks. And it's a great way to kickstart the trip. So anyone flying out of Dulles, basically you really should get the card. And again, with the simplicity aspect, it just earns 2x back on everything. So you don't have to worry about, oh, which card do I use
Yep.
at the gas station, the grocery store, right? You're going to be constantly earning the Capital One miles, and then again, it transfers to Air Canada for Star Alliance, British Airways, Qantas for American Airlines, Virgin Air France for Delta. So it kind of meets enough of what people need. Then obviously, as you continue to listen to this podcast episode, read Ross's post, there's more cards out there, the Chases, the MX, and yeah, even the unique ones like Mesa and Built now.
Yeah. No,
But to
I
start
agree.
with Metro X.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's whenever someone asks me, it's like, do you want to keep it super simple? Get that. I mean, and people are like, how many cards do you have? And I tell them, I go, oh my gosh. I go, honestly, for personal, I have two daily drivers. I got the Venture before the Venture X came out. So I've just used that, but that's for all the bills. That's for everything that, isn't getting those elevated offers with the reserve. But other than that, like, sure, we have some hotel branded cards, but those are used for specific use cases, right? So it isn't, when it comes down to it, no matter how many cards people have, a lot of the times they're using two or three. And again, going back to your home airport, like that's the strategy, right? If we lived in Dulles, 100%. My wife will probably get that anyways because she needs a more premium card. But but yeah,
Yeah, even the United cards aren't that great here. I mean, yeah, you get a bunch of credits, you get check bags. If you do fly with check bags a lot, I would consider it. But the United clubs that you get access to with the highest level or with the Explorer, you get a couple passes. All the lounges are in the basement. Like it, and like you could go to the Capital One lounge, which has a nice view, good food, drinks, ambiance. With the Capital One card, you also get priority pass. You got Turkish Airlines lounge, which is great meatballs there during lunch. You got Air France, KLM lounge. And the Virgin Atlantic is not as great anymore, but you could get access to that. Great areas right next to the gate views. The United lounges again. But if you're going to the Polaris one because you're flying international business, then it's great. You got showers, restaurant, everything you need there. But the other club lounges, again, they're just in the basement.
yeah.
I mean, they're better than the gate, but like there's such a huge opportunity cost where you could go to these better lounges.
Yeah, yeah, no, very, very well said. Well, Matt, this was super helpful. Appreciate you coming on. Where can our listeners find you if they want to learn more and give you a follow?
Yeah, I'm everywhere. My company's WuHoo Group, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. I have a newsletter. I'll just send all these links to Ross. He can post them somewhere. So that's where you can find me and interact with me.
Awesome. Well, Matt, this was super helpful again. Appreciate you coming on. And for our listeners, if this is your first time listening, make sure you give us a follow or subscribe. That way you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes that we put out weekly with expert guests like Matt. Make sure you give us a 5-star review as well. That helps us grow the show, keep this going. And I personally think Matt deserves one. So I'm definitely gonna, give him that 5-star. But again, appreciate everyone tuning in. We will see you next week.